Welcome to your Thriving Heart for Thriving Life Grief Tips. Do you know a child who experienced grief or trauma? Or perhaps you know an adult who, as a child, experienced grief. Any of the 40 different causes of grief, may that be loss of a loved one, including loss of a beloved pet that's impactful to the child, or perhaps it's other form of grief such as abuse. Recently, a public figure shared about experiencing grief from loss of a parents, and there are a lot of questions now about navigating grief in child, whether it is the navigating grief to helping children with grief, or as an adult who experience grief as a child. And so that I will share in this video a few tips and tools on navigating grief in children as well as adults who experience grief as a child. And the first would be recognizing the impact of this of grief. And there are more commonly known, actually really more commonly remember, impact of grief in children. In children's couple commonly remember, including behavior issues, social issues, as well as regressions. A couple less commonly remembered impact of grief in children are things such as delayed cognitive development. And this is because the impact of grief on our brain, our amygdala. Children with grief can have difficulty understanding cause and effect. So difficulty developing causal relationship in their mind, and which is then learning ability as a result. And this is partly because of the effect of the grief on their prefrontal cortex in the brain. Altered stress response. So in other words, some kids become very overreactive and some other become very underreactive or appear very, very stoic, at least at the beginning. And this is from the effect of grief on the brain as well, the amygdala, as well as on the fight or flight response, our fight or flight system, as well as physical illness. Kids can suddenly become prone to illness and have sleep disturbance. The illness could be partly from sleep disturbance, nightmare, and not being able to sleep, but also from inflammations. And the physical illness and this sleep disturbance can carry over to adult. And this include, I have one client not too long ago came to me for something unrelated to childhood grief, actually coming for a problem at the workplace and losing job, not able to have a steady career and good work relationship and so forth. And one of the things that he mentions is that he always had difficulty sleeping as long as he could remember, at least since high school or something. And as we work together, it turns out that there is a grief, that there is an event, a couple event that he buried in his mind, actually, but something that happened when he was 12 or 13, 14 years old. And when we actually help him navigate through this and release the pain and the trauma from that grief, not only he's able to sleep now, some 30 years later, but also he's able to actually have a much better relationship as well as improve his physical health greatly. He was having continuous migraine and continuous stomach problem. And so in adult, this can carry over. This can carry over, and sometimes it shows up as chronic conditions. And we know nowadays there are studies showing that there are adults that experience childhood grief and not having it completely resolved has increased risk of cardiovascular problem as well as early mortality. Having metabolic issue is another expressions of grief or in adult, and this can shows up as having weight problem as well as immune problem from the inflammation. So either having immune mediated conditions or not having good immunity and having a lot of stress symptoms, adrenal fatigue, so to what's called adrenal fatigue, the reduced ability to tolerate stress physically as well as emotionally from the effect of grief on our hypothalamus pituitary axis, so in our stress system and our vagus nerve, emotional numbness, emotional overcompensations, emotional detachments, even as somebody become a parent and in relationship, as well as forgetfulness and memory loss. And if it continue contributing to propensity of Alzheimer, again, because of the effect of grief on our hippocampus, and identity issue and inability to feel joy. I have another client, not a little time back actually, and says, everything in my life is wonderful, and she does has a wonderful life in every way. Good career, good financial, good significant other. She's like, but something in me just cannot feel joy. It's kind of like there is a cap on my ability to feel joy, and I turn to numb. Every time I start to feel joyful, I turn to numb. And looking back, it is some things that happened actually 50 years before. And so inability to feel joy. And the good news is, among all those things that does not sound very encouraging, the good news is that it is possible, whether to help as the child, to help a child, or even if the person is an adult now, to be able to navigate through the grief. So if you have a child that experiencing grief, what are a couple things that you can do? Number one is to receive professional help for the child and for you. Not just the child or not just you, but also professional help for the child and for you. And this is even if some people say, well, it's not affecting me as much, but just to be able to understand the child and understand the whole process, it's beneficial to receive professional help for the child and you. And and I'll share a couple other tips and tools, as well as something that you can use in to help the child release the grief in just a moment. But other things that's commonly known is to provide a simple, honest explanations to the child in age appropriate manner on what happened, to allow them and to actually help them express in their feelings in their own way, and to normalize all emotions, not just sadness, but all emotions. We know children and everybody experience grief very differently. Some people laugh when they are stressed or grieving or traumatized, and as much as it look inappropriate to some other people, we know that sometimes some kids actually, instead of feeling sad, at least at the beginning, they become seemingly very focused at work, or very energized or something. So to normalize all emotions and their expressions of emotions all along, of course, while being guided by a professionals, therapists who work with children, and then to allow routine, to make sure that the kids has the routine, because it's allow them to be able to help with their nervous system. Grief, as we mentioned, can kind of make our nervous system feel disarray, and having a good routines help with that. And then also to have tools that if you notice that the child is not feeling the best, whether they're crying or they're very stressed or they're very angry or something, to have something that allow them to release the grief from their body. And this is because we know that grief affected our full nervous system, not just our brain, not just our heart, but our full nervous system, as well as affected our body, our cells. Grief changed our DNA. And the next two tools are actually something that, as an adult, we can benefit from it ourselves as well. And so the first one is to help release grief from the body. And what does that look like? That looks like in the moment, to be able to shake every client who work with me, I say, learn to shake your hand and your feet and your body. And for a kid, for instance, if a kid's feeling really angry or really upset, you can say, hey, you know what? How about if we shake it off like a dog shaking off water? And then safely you give example of shaking. Shake your hands, shake your feet, shake your head, shake your whole body, and then involve the child. Hey, you wanna, we want to get into see if we can get a shaking competitions. Let's shake it off and shake it off and shake it off. And that allow, as well as you can invite the kids, depend on what are the situations, perhaps to stretch in a way that feasible for the child and you, again, age appropriate, to do even some movement. But shaking and stretchings are known to release, to calibrate our nervous systems very, very well. And this is something that will help you as well as the kid to calibrate. And what about if the kid too upset to do anything? Sometimes they just like, they're not listening, they don't want to do anything. One thing that you can do is to lightly press your palm, one palm over your heart or in the middle of your chest, and then the other palm, if you have the second hand free, over your diaphragm. So one palm over your chest, one palm over your diaphragm. If you don't need to be hanging on to the child. If you do, then one palm over the chest, and invite the kid to do this. And this will, the tactile part will help calibrate the child nervous system as well as your nervous system. And even if the child do not want to do that, sometimes kids just upset and their hands all over the place instead of placing it where it is. You can do that, and if they let you place with your other hand, place their hand over the child. The tactile again help calibrate our nervous system, kids or adult. And also, if you're able to, notice your heart, notice your breathing. You don't have to while it's beneficial if you can deep breath or invite the child to deep breathe. If a child is upset, they might not want to be doing deep breathing. It's okay. And even if you have to be talking and you cannot be doing deep breathing and meditations at the moment, that's okay, as long as you do that. And then if you're able to just notice your inhale and exhale, and as you do that, there is something in the human body, in everybody nervous system, that's called mimicry. And so when you do that and you practice to center yourself, and this is ideally you practice before you have to be doing this with a child. If you practice to center yourself, if you place your palm lightly, gently on your chest, and if possible, your other palm over your diaphragm, and you centered your child, sooner than later, the child nervous system will mimic you and center and calm down much sooner than otherwise, rather than if you become involved in the upsetness, so to say. And so this allow us as the adult to stay centered. And then even if the child would not do it, it will allow them through mimicry. If you calm down to mimicry, they will adapt this. This has been shown through many studies. And so those are a couple tools that you can do as you are interacting directly with the child, or if you are somewhere else as adult and something stress you, you could do that as well. If it is something that you are able to do, perhaps in traffic somebody cut you short, or you hear a music or something that brings a memory, unpleasant memory that triggers you. This is some tools that you can do, as well as some other tools, including the driving heart breathing that I shared in the past. But these are some things that's more in the moment when we're interacting with a kid. If you are able to, for older child, perhaps they are stressed, they are sad. If you're able to, you can invite them to connect the tip of their tongue to the roof of their mouth, and then connect the pointer gently press the pointer finger, middle finger, and the thumb, the tips together. It's also, as we learned in the other videos, can help calibrate your nervous system. And just know, if you are going through this, you're a child going through this, my heart goes out to you, because I can't even imagine how you feel. But please know that there is help. And what if this is, you think, remembered about childhood trauma, if you know this, that an adult who are still experiencing the afflictions, the impact of grief that happened when the person was a child, by by definitions, that is now considered, and it is prolonged complicated grief. Childhood trauma has a lot of ways to manifest itself, as well as need a lot of approach. You need really good approach to release the grief. And because of that, if it is an adult that whom you know who has experienced childhood trauma and still suffering from the effect of it, the best thing to do is to receive help from a professional who understands childhood trauma well as has the ability to help the person release the grief, not just from their mind, not just from their heart, but from their nervous system, from their body, from the cells, the energetic field even. And so, but knowing that it is possible, it is absolutely possible to do that. It doesn't matter how long it has been. One client who came to me for grief, the health related grief, the, the which is physical illness, happened to also have asthma for over 60 years. And as we work from all the other things, including the health and relationship grief, turned out that the asthma that was getting worse and worse and worse for the last 60 years, the client is in his 70s, and suddenly the asthma that was so bad that the person's needing inhaler 3 times a day suddenly goes away, just like that. So just know, doesn't matter how long it has been, my heart goes out to you if you or your loved one experience grief. But please know that there is help. Doesn't matter how long it has been, doesn't matter how bad it has been, that there is help, and therefore there is hope. And if you have any questions, feel welcome to connect with me directly. You can connect with me at drtanforgrief@gmail.com. You also very much welcome to share your questions or your comments in the comment sections under this video, as well as if you find this any part of this video is useful or educational to you, then please subscribe and like this video, subscribe to the channel and like this video so you can continue receiving updates, and feel welcome to share this video as well. And this is Dr. BirgitteTan with Joyful Riches Beyond Grief. I care about you very much. I look forward to see you again in the next video.